Welcome to your Spotlight interview. If you'd like to introduce yourself and your business to the community, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, no problem at all. My name's Adrian Mansfield. I run a business called Blue Bay Alliance and also another company called Blue Bay Recruitment, both of which work in the recruitment space. So Blue Bay Alliance was set up a couple of years ago and provides all the ancillary services that go with running a recruitment company to allow people to focus on the recruitment business side. And then Blue Bay Recruitment is, as the name says, a recruitment business that focuses mainly on the civil engineering and marine engineering space in the UK, globally. So we work in the Middle East, we work in Africa, we work in the US, and obviously here in Europe. So that's what we do. So I hire people on a contract or permanent basis on interim, on a recruitment basis, and then we support other people, helping them set up their own agencies and help them grow it and develop it from there.
Amazing. And how long have you been doing it for?
I've been in recruitment 24 years now, I suppose. The first 10 were in the UK, and then the last 15 have been internationally, working in the Middle East and some other weird and wonderful places, including Afghanistan and Iraq and nice parts of the world that people don't get to see. And then I've been running these two companies now for just over 2 years. Blue Bay is about 2 years old. We've started it, my partner and I started it, business partner and I started during COVID to help people coming out of the recruitment space who were getting laid off at the time. Sort of did it as a kind of almost pay it forward, because we've been in recruitment and got a lot out of it, and sort of decided we could help these people getting off the ground effectively, and then it kind of grew from there really. So we've done it, work with a number of different companies of all sorts of different sizes to help support them. Effectively do the back office and a little bit more. So we kind of built the business around the support we would want to see if we were setting up a little agency of our own. So we do everything that doesn't involve going out and talking to the clients and sorting the candidates out. We do everything else. And it kind of helps businesses if somebody's making the leap into a new company, start that with a relatively easy transition. So yeah, I've been doing 5 years in recruitment and a couple of years doing this.
Amazing. And what's been the biggest learning from that transition into from one business into two businesses?
Time management, I think, it's always an issue. I think time management, you're trying to do anything like this, because obviously now with two different types of hat on, I've still got to go out. I got to go out and do my bit. So I've got to go and do the Blue Bay recruitment sales environment piece. I've got to do the Blue Bay Alliance sales piece, if you like, making sure those are okay. And then obviously from the Blue Bay Alliance point of view, I've also got a lot of running and support functions that I do as part of the role that I do within that. So there's a lot of different calls on time, and some of those can be relatively urgent, and some of them can be important, and it's managing that kind of quadrants of urgent importance and stuff like that still becomes a problem. But I do quite a lot of acting. So we've got a team in India, we've got a team in South Africa. We do a lot of work to kind of get the right level of quality of service out of fundamentally the cost options possible. So we do a lot of, I learned quite quickly that I needed a PA, so I've got a virtual PA in India that does a lot of my management of diary and things like that, which helps a lot, keeps me on track and keeps chipping me along in when I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing and things like that.
Pulls you in.
Yeah.
I guess the big question across the community is all around this, the great resignation or the great reshuffle or whatever term you want to use. How is that affecting as you're in the industry, living it and breathing it? How is it affecting the world? Big question.
If you talk to recruitment consultancies the world over, they would say it's an incredibly tough time at the moment. Candidates are, whether it's a great resignation and people aren't moving, I don't know. The difficulty is at the moment, skilled candidates, we work in civil engineering, for example, skilled candidates just are not looking to move or not jumping up and down. We've almost lost 2 years of normal wear and tear, if you like. So in any recruit environment, you typically have people leaving on a regular basis from the company. People will just disappear off. They'll go and decide they want to move and whatever. So there's a normal wear and tear of business that kind of people are in the market, and that's typically where the recruitment market sits. We try and pair those people up with new companies and people are looking to go. COVID kind of made people hold on a lot harder than they would otherwise have done to the companies they were with, and then out the other side, they sort of stayed there and didn't decide to move. So you've had this sort of 2 year period now where recruitment companies, clients, have been trying to hire people in. Recruitment companies have been trying to find them, and they're just not out there. I mean, we're now doing quite a lot of work with companies who are looking to source globally for workforce, either basing them nationally or actually bringing them to the UK, just because the people aren't out there. So we haven't seen this great resignation that's been talked about. We've seen. I mean, the idea that people are not working to the full expanse of their time. Well, I think that's just a product of the fact that people are now working more from home and bosses to worry about the fact they're not doing anything. I think that's probably not accurate. So I don't think there's necessarily I think there's a massive issue at the moment in the UK and in most Western economies of a huge skill gap. The companies that want what they want and not in the market. We've got an aging population, particularly in the UK. Those people who can do the jobs in their sleep are coming to the end of their careers, and those people coming up below aren't necessarily finished quite as quickly as companies would want to. And I think we're going to see that being the biggest issue over the next 10 years is how you fill some of these, for want of a better description, middle level role in most skilled businesses is going to be where the problems really sit. I think the other thing we've done quite a lot of work on with our clients recently is it's effectively the employee, we call it employee value proposition. So it's the ability for a company to look at how they attract, firstly, but more importantly, retain their workforce.
Yeah.
How they are offering services to companies. And it's not about, most companies, when you ask them about, we just pay people more, we just offer them more salary. Most of the time, that's not actually if you do surveys, and we've done them, you can look at the model, and actually there isn't a direct correlation between salary and people staying in a job. And particularly in the current climate where the fact, as I just said, people are able to, there are jobs out there. If we really wanted to leave, there are jobs out there paying probably more than, because the market's such at the moment that companies are relatively throwing money at people. So the opportunity out there for more money, people just aren't taking them. It's more about how you value that employee and what you package around them, particularly if people are working more and more. And how do you build that that brand, that value for the employee that attracts the first place and then retains them going forward? And I think that's really where companies that we're working with are seeing a real benefit now, is helping to look at how the whole piece. And we use the analogy of a Christmas tree. It's like you build a Christmas tree, but it looks bare without the baubles. So you need the baubles, which are the things like the salary and the insurances and health insurance and holidays and all that sort of stuff. But the middle core of the business is where you need to be doing work as well. You can't do one without the other. So the employee value proposition, I think, is one area where companies are really missing a trick in terms of how they could see a way of dealing with this thing while are looking to leave, or just retaining people and not having to necessarily just keep throwing money at people. Because I think that's really where the opportunities lie.
No, completely. And have you seen that correlation as well in the current kind of like the cost of living crisis, where people assume that individuals just want more salary?
Yeah, I think it's just it's not just, I mean, the cost of living crisis is making it more acute at the moment, but I think the standard stock model for any company of any size is, oh, these people are leaving, therefore I'll pay them more. And it's like, well, did you actually ask them? I mean, the number of companies that I've spoken to that say, well, do you do exit interviews? Do you properly do, and not just kind of have a quick coffee with them before they leave? Somebody independent or somebody that isn't a direct line manager has a little chat with them with a real understanding of what it is that made them leave. Because often that's not, as I say, we've done some research on this, and it very rarely is money. The other reasons, I mean, money is a motivator, don't get me wrong, but it's not always the reason that people are jumping ship. It's well, just didn't feel valued, or I couldn't have felt like I was in a dead end role. I couldn't see where my next career path move might be. I couldn't see how I was going to get there. I couldn't. So you kind of sit there and actually there's a disconnect there, because actually if they'd have been in those conversations earlier with client, they would have seen that was an opportunity, and they could say, actually, we do value. We could see how you could. This is what, and with 2 or 3 steps, they've got an employee that's back in track and really forward with the company. So I think the cost of living crisis is going to make the fact that people think automatically to money more acute, but actually very often that's not the motivator, and very often it's not the main motivator.
No, of course. And totally, you can see it in people, it's the power of asking someone how they are and actually meaning it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much so.
Okay, so back to your business and you as a business owner, what gets you excited still for being in the same industry for a long time and obviously being busy? What is that kind of driver for you?
It's the challenge and the puzzle. I think for me, at its basic level, recruitment is about the kind of it's a horrible analogy, but it is that child's puzzle of a square hole, square peg. It's that kind of scenario, and often it's not just square hole, square peg. It's square hole. It's pegged with 3 or 4 different arms off it and a leg off it, and trying to fit it through the slot that the client's trying to build, and actually trying to understand, client, do you need that, or do you need? It's the old analogy I used to start out with a lot of my trainees when I was working in recruitment. It's like 9 times out of 10, the client wants to replace Fred, but what they want to do is replace Fred when Fred left, not Fred when he started. And actually, what to do is find somewhere in the middle, because they're not going to. Fred's left. They need to find somebody that's probably Fred minus 2 or 3, and it's explaining that to the client. So a lot of the time, it's about solving problems. And for me now, because we tend to work on bigger programs of roles or bigger projects, certainly in my case, I tend to be talking to clients about. So it's about solving their overarching issue. So for example, this conversation we're having with the one client at the moment is we just can't find, we tried and we can't find the skills we need in the UK. They either just aren't available, or they aren't available at a cost that's a viable model for our budget. So we're now working with them in terms of going out and source international labor supply from another market that potentially could come in, meet the visa criteria, et cetera, and and the client will then sponsor them onto their visa. Now, obviously, that doesn't work for every company, but that works for them because they're big enough and they can do that. But equally, there are other models where you say, well, look, is the best option for you to do this job in the UK, or could you find another way of doing it in some other part of the world? We've got contracts where they're looking at development of teams in India for particular bespoke piece of the work that we can go, okay, that can be done there. So it's about solving not just the staffing problem. We need an X, we need a Fred, which we do, but it's also looking at the holistic staffing issue and going, okay, well, like the EVP program, how do we go into a company and sort of take the kind of we need an X off and go, actually, well, what else is there we can help with? That's the challenge that gets me up. To start finding the X, finding the Fred. I've got a team that kind of does that for me, if I'm honest. Sounds horrible, but I have. My job is to go into a client and go, okay, well, look, I've been doing this for 25 years. That's not your problem. Finding Fred isn't your problem. Finding why Fred left has caused this, and not just Fred, but Frida and Joan and John, other people have left as well. How do you stop them leaving? Go back to the EVP. How do we work? Or how they are? We can't replace those people because they're the left-hand degree widget makers haven't been trained for the last 20 years, so therefore we can't find more new ones. Either you have to find them and we have to find them with a better set of skills and you have to train them, or we have to find somewhere else in the world that do make those things now, and therefore we can bring those skills in, or we find some combination of the both. So for me, it's about the challenges of working with the company to understand what they're trying to achieve and how we can deliver a staffing solution that meets that need within the budgets and confines of what they can realistically do.
And you make it sound so easy, but that whole organizational design and budget is always a challenge.
Yeah, and there's always trade-offs. Can we pay this or that, or But yeah, it's fun. I mean, that's what gets me. That's what I enjoy, is going to sit with the client and going, okay, how do we do this? How does that work, and what's realistic and what's not realistic? And it doesn't always work, because sometimes the client just goes, "Oh, you want Fred? Okay, well, we'll go and find Fred there." But yeah, that's the bit that gets in. If you get me up in the morning, that's the sort of stuff it does.
Yeah, no, you can tell you love it still. And what advice would you give to somebody who is just kind of umming and ahhing, dipping a toe and starting a business? What advice would you give them?
Oh, do it tomorrow, or do it today if you can, but do it tomorrow definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think there are so many talking. I mean, we have this conversation a lot because of what we do with Blue Bay Alliance. We're talking to people who are in a recruitment job and who are thinking. And recruitment is one of those markets where actually it's relatively easy to go out and start yourself, because the barriers to entry are quite minimal. Computer and a desk, and you're away, and a phone. We often have these conversations where people are sort of going, "Oh, do I do? No, so." So we're often having that chat about, well, what you got to lose, frankly. The benefits of running your own company are massive, opportunity-wise, financially, all those sort of things. There are some, don't get me wrong, there are some times, particularly when you're first starting out, where you're trying to make payroll, or if you haven't got people, you're trying to pay your own bills, where there are some stresses. But maybe it's just my view, but I just think the opportunities and the chances that your own company will give you are much more are greater than everything you're going to get working for somebody else. And it's, that's the fundamental point behind it. And I have a company now, it's got my name over the door. I do what I say, and therefore, anybody, and again, maybe it's my personality, but anybody, if anybody's at fault, it's me. So, but I can solve that because I can just do more or work harder or chase more or whatever. But I can resolve that. I'm not reliant on a lot of other people, goal strategy. And the obvious one I always get, particularly in recruitment, ironically, which you'd think they wouldn't, is, oh, I've got security in my career. I've got security, and I get paid a salary and all that kind of stuff. And you go, well, yeah, but have you? I mean, how often I've been in companies that have decided to be sold to a bull and suddenly change a strategy and a structure changed, or this has happened, or that's happened, or the company's decided to come out of that market entirely. So the days of security of 35, 40-year jobs have gone now. So I think we're in a career path now where we're better taking ownership of our own career. And I think what better way to do that is try and do your own business. It gives you all the bits that you need and a lot more as well. So.
No, perfect. And sometimes people just need to hear the success of it. And my next question is a complete opposite end, really. What was your biggest challenge when you started? What was the one that almost made you go, I can't do it?
Well, because I've done I started my own company in 2008. I started my own company the first company I started was in 2003. I put it in administration in 2009 because of the first financial crash, the housing crisis, and it ended up crashing. And in that company, the thing I learned was the one person I missed from a previous corporate career that I didn't have when I started my own company was the IT person, client support person in IT that I would have not said hello to in a million. I mean, I was quite nice, I probably did, but it's the sort of person you just ignored because he wasn't really. The moment you start your own company, you suddenly go, I can't do this. Pick up the phone and try and speak to the IT guy, and obviously, so you suddenly get very good at IT. So when I started this company, that was one of the things I got started first and foremost. So I think the kind of it's the people you don't expect to miss are the people you typically, and that can be different for everybody in different spaces, different environments. Some people are very good at IT, well, they won't have that problem either. But I think it's the person you'll least expect to be the problem. So I mean, we say to people when we're starting out with Blue Bay, in my first year in that company that when I first started it out, 80% of my time was doing other things that weren't to do with selling the service, the recruitment solution. 80% of my business was involved. 80% of my time, was doing other stuff: IT, finance, setting up accounts, setting up doing payroll or not payroll, invoicing and stuff like that. Little things like that. You just suddenly realise that now it's your own business, got to be part of that process. Now, we're almost 20 years on. These systems are a lot quicker now. You can get IT systems that will do your payroll and do your finances and stuff like that. But it's using those things and making your, but it will be the one thing that you miss is the thing that you think, I didn't need, but because we all think, how am I going to get sales? How am I going to deliver? Where am I going to find the money from? All those sort of things become kind of pretty key focus, but then it's the things that you forget, the little bits in between it that you kind of go, oof. So I think the things, not to answer your question, one of the things I did this time around was I got a good group of people around me, not paid, just advisors, people I could go to if I had a problem. Having done it before, I knew that the biggest thing I would need is that kind of and click thing. So I joined a couple of networking groups, one linked to golf, and I've now got a whole load of suppliers there, so I can go ask a question of things like that. Just getting stuff around you that you never need, but you've got an option to pick up the phone and go, ooh, what about this? What about that? So I think that's the kind of thing. You just need to go pay him, buy him a beer occasionally, or play golf with him occasionally, or whatever. Do stuff that you think might, but generally just get some people on your side who are going to help.
Perfect, thank you. And then the other side is two more questions, but this one is how do you switch off from it? Because it's yours and it's busy and it's international. How do you switch off?
I think it's a better question for my partner, my fiance, really, than mine. I've got better over the years. 2000, when I first did this, I didn't. I was literally all in all the time. And then having lost the company and sort of done a kind of sit down in a dark room and work out, you suddenly realize that you spent 5 years building a company that you then lose, and you kind of missed out on pieces of your life. So I mean, I'm much better now at trying to switch off, but you never do. I mean, you never fully get away from the fact that you're, you know, there's always that kind of cold moment in the middle of the night. You go, oh, if that invoice doesn't get by then, we've got to do less. And those little things do come up. But I'd argue that I would be doing that in somebody else's company. I had those moments in other people's companies. So it's not like you don't have that feel. I'm sure those that are starting to think about setting up a company will have had that moment where they sit bolt upright at 2 a.m. when they're working for somebody else, thinking, "Why, I wish I'd done. I wish there was what happens if that doesn't happen." So the fact is, your company doesn't. Most people these days will, if they're in that kind of environment, will feel that they don't have anyway. So my thought being, I'm better at compartmentalizing. I'm not better at switching off. I'm better now going, okay, this is family time. You know, I went on holiday for 2 weeks in the summer, and the phone was relatively off. It wasn't, certainly the emails weren't being, etc., etc. So I'm getting better at it. I'm not perfect. I'm getting better at it. But my point, actually, I'm doing it for the right reasons, because if there is a little part of my brain still thinking about it, I'm doing it for my business and not somebody else's. So I'd rather have, you know, those cold morning sweats at 2 a.m. for my company than I would for somebody else's.
No, of course. Fab. Thank you. And then last question. What inspires you?
Oh, good question. Inspires me. It's very difficult, this question, because people go, what business people? I mean, up to people that I look up to in the business world. I think it's the counterpoint now. I've got kids. I've got one of my own. I've got two now that I'm sort of stepkids, father to, effectively, or, you know, partnerless kids. And what inspires me is the ability to show them stuff. I guess now I'm less. When I was younger, it was all about the bling and all about the thing, and, you know, what have I got? And, oh, I want to get to this point. You've got bean boards. I want to get to this. Now it's all about, you know, I want to show them and I want to provide them a good role model. So that inspires me, is that ability to go, actually, look, this is what you can do. You know, get away from the idea that you have to be a YouTube celebrity. You can still be quite successful by doing other things. But yeah, that's it really. I think that inspires me. The getting up in the morning, going, right, okay, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for them, and I want to inspire them by doing that. I get, in terms of personal inspirations, I get inspired by lots of different things. I listen to loads of podcasts and things will crack. Oh, that's a good idea. I'll put that down. I've got somewhere, it's actually in my bag. Now I've got take it to walking around with a dictaphone. I look like I'm in the 1980s movie, because I kind of go, because I get these ideas and I go. But yeah, things like that inspire me. I take inspiration from all sorts. So personally, I take inspiration from all different ways and different things. It could be anything from, for some are taking ideas off their customer service model. That inspires me to do something different on my side. So you find inspiration from all different places, but from what actually doing things is now trying to inspire the next generation.
Amazing, thank you. And that wraps us up. Great job.